Hello and welcome to another video by Easy Makes It Easy. In this particular video, I'm going to be covering the latest feature that was just added to the Model Context Protocol specification called Elicitation. So this video will talk about what this feature is about, how you can set it up on the MCP server side, as well as how you can configure your MCP clients to leverage this capability to provide additional information to the server when making the request. So we will cover how to do it on the MCP server side using Python, the Python SDK, as well as on 3 different clients on the client side. So I will start with the MCP Inspector as the first client. Then I will walk you through how you can do this using Visual Studio Code, and then I will show you how to do it in a Python AI library called Pydantic AI. So those are going to be the 3 clients we're going to be doing on the client side. So now let's get started with what this is about on the server side. So there are going to be certain scenarios where when you invoke a particular tool call, you have the need to request additional information from the client before you process the request and send back information to that particular client that invoked the specific tool. So that is what this particular capability is about. When the server detects that there are certain conditions where additional information is needed, it would trigger this elicitation request, and then a user interface will be presented on the client side, and the client will have to specify either a string, a boolean, or a numeric field to complete the information, and then this will be sent back to the calling server. So that is what is happening with this particular capability. Now, this was added on June 18th of 2025. This video was made 3 months later approximately, but most people don't really understand what this feature is about yet. So this particular video is to explain what this is about, how it works on the server side, and how you can configure both your server and your client to leverage this capability. So when you trigger the MCP elicitation request, you can collect information from 4 different data types. So you can ask for it as a string, as a number, whether it's an integer or whether it is a floating point number, and then you can also request it as a boolean. If it is an enumeration, this allows you to place constraints on the values that are acceptable, and then you can do that if you're using strings to do so. So maybe you're having something like a state or a country or area code where it has to come from a specific drop down. So when you have that kind of scenario where you have an array of options that have to restrict the particular value that is accepted, then you can use an enum for that. Now, since we're going to be sending this schema as an object, the object has to be flat. So none of the fields can be an array or another object or dictionary. So if you take a look at the data type that we are having, we have like in this case here, I'm gonna collect 4 different data types. I'm gonna collect a boolean, I'm gonna collect an integer, a string, and a floating point number, just to demonstrate how this is gonna work out. So what we're doing here is that I'm setting up an MCP server on my repo that has access to flight records. So these fictitious or hypothetical flight records is going to be for multiple airports located inside the United States, Canada, and Mexico. I also have passport numbers for hypothetical citizens of these 3 countries. Now, what is going to trigger the MCP elicitation request is going to be when you are traveling across countries. When you are traveling domestically inside a particular country, no visa is going to be required. But when you are traveling outside the country, if you don't specify your passport number, or if you specify your passport number and the passport number, it does not, the country on that passport does not match that of the destination country, then visa required will be specified on your flight availability, and you will have to specify a visa number to go to that country. So that's what this is about, and I have functions here to check to see if this visa is required or not. So that's going to be on the server side. So when we invoke this MCP server, what is happening is that it would check for the flight. Now, if the particular flight you're searching for is going to be across countries, then it's going to ask you for your passport number, it's going to ask for the passport ID, how many people are traveling, and then the total luggage weight for the trip for all the passengers you have. So we're collecting Boolean, string, floating point numbers, and integers just to demonstrate what you can do. And the data type that controls that is the models, is inside these models files here, and you can take a look at it and see how it works. It works for you. So this is what the service is about. So in the service here, we have this particular tool call. The tool call has to pass in the context object that controls the server session. And then inside that, if we have a scenario where the flight is international, meaning that the departure country is different from the destination or arrival country, we're going to check for the passport number and get the information that we need. And then to do that, we are invoking this particular call here, and we are passing the schema. The schema is that model that I specified over here in the models file. So if you take a look at that, you should be able to see it. It is saying that the person should put their passport information, and then we are checking all of these things here. If the person is a citizen of the destination country, then we should set that visa required is optional, is not needed, and then that will modify the response. But otherwise, for all international flights, it will say that visa required is true. If you either decline or you provide a passport number where the destination country does not match that of the citizenship of the passport holder. So that is what we're doing in this particular request. We're configuring the server to do that. Now this has other things like prompts and resources, but for this particular tutorial, I am focusing just on the elicitation feature. And I want to show you how you can do that on the server side. So take a look at this code and you should be able to see how this is done. It's very simple to do that. So now we have the server side explained. The next thing that we need to do now is to head out to the repository, clone the code. And once you clone the code, we are going to come over here and we are going to get started with running the MCP Inspector client. So that's the first one. The next one will be VSCode, and the third one would be our Pydantic AI library that we have configured. So I'm going to go ahead and start up the server. So to do that, I'm going to do UV run. Now, if you take a look at what is inside the folder, we have the flights MCP service Python file. So that is where my MCP service is located. So if I do UV run flights, they should download all the dependencies that is needed. Before you do that, I would recommend you do UV sync to get all the packages, and then you can do source virtual environment, and then bin activate, and then this would activate the virtual environment. Now once we do that, we should be able to do UV run and then our flights database. So now the MCP server is up and running. The next thing I need to do is to go ahead and invoke my MCP Inspector client. So I have this running. Now this opens up in this particular browser, but I'm going to be using Microsoft Edge for this. So I have to copy the session token, head over to my client, and so if you open up the configuration, you would have to put your session ID in here. Now it's connected, so let's list all the tools that are available. So now we are connected to the MCP server. Let's take a look at some of the passport IDs. So if you take a look, we have these passport IDs here. The one that says 12345 is for an American citizen. So let's go over to this data access object and take a look. So 12345 belongs to Jane Doe, that is a citizen of the United States. And we also have Samantha Smith is also a US citizen. We have Jose is a Mexican citizen, and John Smith is a Canadian citizen. So if you specify a passport number where the citizenship does not match that of the destination country, then visa required will be true. Otherwise, it will be false if the citizenship matches the destination country. So that's what this logic is about. So now I'm going to try to check for available dates. So if I check, now this code loads flight availability from the current date all the way to like 8 days into the future. So that is what you are seeing here. Whenever you run it, the date will change based on what date you're running the code. So I'm going to pick September 5, and then I'm going to do a search, do a flight search. So if I search for this date, let's start with local flights. So from Orlando to Atlanta. Now, if you come inside the model's code, you should be able to see different airport codes in here, and then inside the data access object, you should be able to see the different airports that we have. So Orlando International Airport in the US, we have 4 airports: Atlanta Airport, Los Angeles, Miami, and Orlando. For Canada, we have Toronto, Vancouver, Montreal, Trudeau. And then for Mexico, we have Cancun and Mexico City. So those are all the airport codes that we have inside the code. But for now, I want to show you how it works for local domestic flights. So you can see here we have all these different flights that are going on. We have 5 flights for this particular date. And then if we want to do an international flight, so let's say we're going from Orlando to, let's say, Mexico. So I'm gonna put the Cancun airport. That's a popular airport in Mexico. Now, do you see what is happening? It is asking me for the passport identifier, and then if I submit it, it's telling me that visa required is true. Visa required is true because the traveler ID does not, the citizenship of the traveler does not match that of the destination country. Now, if I use the citizenship ID of someone else who is a citizen of Mexico, like passport ID 54321, you're going to see that when the request is complete, it will tell me that the visa required is not true, is false. But right now, visa required is true because the citizenship does not match up. So let's run this again. Passport ID 54321. 3 people are traveling. Total weight is 455. And then we submit this. When we submit this, visa required is still true. What happened? Let's check this again. Okay, the person has a passport 54321. And then 55, submit. So visa required is false. So now visa required is false because the person is a Mexican citizen and we're going to their country. So that completes it if you're doing this on the MCP Inspector client. The next client we're going to take a look at is going to be Visual Studio Code. So let's take a look at Visual Studio Code and see how that is going to work. Now to do that, I'm going to open up a new folder. So I have my MCP client folder here. So I'm going to open up a brand new editor here. So what I have here, if you head out to my repo, you're going to see in the README file, I have an example of how to configure this. So just copy this, create a .VSCode folder in your root folder, and then specify the MCP service using this JSON file by creating an mcp.json file inside that request. So this is what we have. We're going to close this. Let's take a look at this service and see what is happening. We're going to go ahead and start the service. The service is running. Let's take a look at our list of tools that we need. So we have our MCP flight service, and then we have all these tools that are listed. So we can search for flights, get available dates, do the same thing we were doing on the MCP Inspector. So let's go ahead and do that. So inside VS Code, now I have configured my agents by opening my agent in agent mode, opening the GitHub Copilot in agent mode, specifying the mcp.json, starting the services. So now everything has been started. So now let's get started. I can pick any language model I want. I'm gonna pick GPT-5 preview to do this. So show me the available travel dates. Let's start with that. So this should invoke one of the tools that we have to show us the dates. Now this is doing this with VSCode as the client. So I can say allow this session or allow in this workspace. So let me allow in this workspace so that I don't get prompted for this again. So it's telling me that I have the following dates available. Now show me the passport IDs available. Let's see if it invokes the passport ID tool endpoint. Okay, so allow in this workspace so that we don't have to do that again. Now we have this. Now we have the passport IDs. So now you should be able to see what passport IDs are available for you to use. So show me flights from Orlando to Los Angeles on September 7th, 2025. So this should be a domestic flight. It should not trigger the request. So we run it. It says visa, as you can see here, visa required is not, it's false. Okay, so we're gonna do the same request. Show me flights from Orlando to Cancun on September 7th. This is an international flight. It should trigger the request. So it's asking me to respond. Do you have a passport? Yes. My passport ID is 12345 for the American. 3 people are on the flight. 300 kilograms. So the result is back and it's saying that visa required is true. Now, if we repeat the same request again, but use the passport ID of the Mexican person, we should see that it is 54321, 3 people, and then 300 kilograms. This should tell us that visa required is false because the citizenship of the country of destination matches that on the passport ID. So this concludes our demo using the Visual Studio Code as our MCP client. You can check this out and you can try this out and let me know what you think. So this is demonstrating the elicitation request using Visual Studio Code as the MCP client. So we're done with this now. The next thing I want to do is to show you how you can use this feature using Pydantic AI. So to do that, I am going to go back to my code. Inside the MCP Elicitation client, I have my language model here set up. I have the example environment file. So you need to specify your Open API endpoint, your key, your model name, and the API version in your own version of the file. So you just rename this file to env.sh, and then you will have to source that file to load the environment variable. So in my own case, I'm going to do that so that when I do this, all my environment variables are fully loaded and I can run it. So my MCP client has certain features. So the first thing is the function that is going to be handling this interaction. So when the MCP server is trying to call back to the client to ask for this extra information, you need to have a function that can respond, a callback that can respond and handle all of those requests that we are talking about. So this callback that I have defined here is an example of how you can configure this handler to respond to the server interaction, extract the schema, and specify all the fields that we need. So we have that here. And then when you are setting up your agent, your MCP service. So since we're using the streaming HTTP response here, we have to configure that callback on that endpoint that we're defining, and then specify those MCP servers to my AI agent. So that's what is happening here. Now, once we do that and we have all our environment variables loaded, we can now go ahead and run the code. So I am going to go ahead and do that now in my VSCode client. But the client that we're doing here is Pydantic. So if you take a look at my project TOML or TOML file, we're using Pydantic AI version 0.8.0. This one has the feature that we're looking for. So let's get started with that. So we're going to do source env.sh, and then I have to make sure that my environment variable is loaded by activating that environment variable. And then once we do that, we can do uv run MCP Elicitation client. So now we have connected to the backend service. Show me available travel dates for search. So that's what I want to do. So it is showing me all the dates that I have available. Can you assist me with anything else? Yes. Show me all the passport IDs and their owners. Okay. So this should make the tool call to those two functions and retrieve the information. So as you can see here, we have Jane Doe and all the other people, their passport identifiers and their countries of citizenship. So yes, and then show me flights for from Orlando Airport. So let me just put the city name. So from Orlando to Cancun. It should be able to parse this information and specify the airport codes on September 8, 2025. Just make sure that the date matches. So do you have a passport? Yes. What is your passport number? 12345. How many people on the flight? 4. 300 kilograms. Do you want to confirm? Yes, I want to confirm. So as you can see, it was extracting the information and it's telling me that there are 4 flights that are available. Visa required is yes, because I am using an American that is not a Mexican citizen. So let's retry this again, but with the Mexican citizenship. So what else would you like me to help you with? Show me available flights. Show me flights from Orlando to Cancun on September 8, 2025. Passport ID, yes, I have. 54321. 3 people on the flight, 300 kilograms, yes, confirm. So the only difference is that in this case, visa required is going to be false, because we are specifying the passport identifier for someone that is a Mexican citizen. So this is the demo that I wanted to show you. I have covered, to summarize what I covered today, I showed you why we need the this particular capability. So just to recap, this capability is when you have the tool calling on the server side needing extra information to handle the request. So the server will now prompt the client to specify this information. We walked you through how you can do this on the MCP Inspector client, the VSCode client, as well as the Pydantic AI client. And I showed you how you can configure the schema both on the server side and how you can extract that schema on the client side by specifying and responding to the prompt. So I hope this particular tutorial helped you to understand what this capability is about, when it was added, and more importantly, how you can specify your server and your client to handle and to interact with each other to extract this information and provide the capability. So that's everything I wanted to cover today. If you want or you have more information or more questions about this, you can put it in the comment and I will provide any extra information that you need. If you need me to cover a different topic similar to this regarding MCP or A to A, please let me know as well. If you like the video, give it a thumbs up, subscribe to the channel, and share this with someone else you think will benefit from this type of content. Thank you very much for your time, and I will see you in the next video.